Thank you for joining me tonight. Hello to our Pure Light Mamas, our Pure Light family. Thank you so much for joining me. I am excited about tonight because it's very relevant to my journey right now, and I'm excited to just be raw and real and share my heart and my experience and my understandings. I'm going to put the chat box on here, make sure that's on. I would love for this to be a conversation. If anybody can join in that way and share their experience or if they have questions. We're talking about birth tonight, guys, and pregnancy and trusting your inner knowing. You can see my belly, 38, a little over 38 weeks with baby number 2. We don't know if it's a boy or girl. We love being surprised, which I know a lot of people think we're crazy, but it's really exciting. And our daughter she'll be 4 in November, so she's very excited about being a big sister. And it's really the second time around, every birth you glean wisdom, and I feel like I learned so much in my first birth, and going into the second birth feel an even greater understanding of trusting my inner knowing, my body, the wisdom within, and surrendering to God and the higher power. So we're going to dive into that tonight, and this is all my personal experience and my personal opinion, and I would love for you to share yours. I think every mom who can hear this information from not just me, but from others, we really are all united in this experience as mothers and this journey that we go through together. And it's not easy. I mean, there's nothing really easy about it, but it's beautiful and it's worth it. And we get to bring life into this world through our bodies, and it's incredible. And we're all in it together. So, and I have a real place in my heart for all mothers. And that's really one of my biggest passions in our practice is caring for moms and babies, of course, and whole families, but especially have such a soft spot in my heart for moms, being one myself, and then just seeing the incredible importance and value that mothers have in our world, and that they need to be supported. And so I want to dive right in. So when the name of this webinar is Trusting Your Inner Wisdom. And so inner wisdom is this universal thing that we all have, especially as women, as mothers. We have this intuition, this gut feeling about things, and it guides us. And it can have different names, whatever you want to call it, but it's this inner knowing, like we know when we need to be doing something. But in our modern world, there can be a big disconnect between our inner knowing, our intuition on pregnancy and birth, and what we're told we should do or what we should expect. And I really want to bridge that gap. And I think every birth is beautiful. And I'm not here to say that like only a certain type of birth is important. I think all births are beautiful no matter what they look like. And like I said, you can glean wisdom from all of them. But one thing I do want to say is that pregnancy and birth are natural processes. They can become interfered with and cause disruptions to the natural processes, but in the bigger picture, they are natural processes. And so I want to remind everybody that is true, that pregnancy and birth are natural. But they really can only stay natural as long as we're dependent on that inner knowing and we don't become disconnected from that intuition and following what we know is best for our pregnancy journey as mothers, as well as for our babies and our families. And so when you trust and surrender and support your inner knowing and this wisdom that you have within as a woman to go through pregnancy and to give birth, you can have greater outcomes and become a mother, go through that portal of becoming a mother with a sense of fulfillment and respect from others and for yourself. But if we work against that inner knowing, if we ignore it or don't listen to it or we push it aside, that's where fear comes in, anxiety, pain, loss of control, powerlessness. And there's a lot of things that play into that. And we really, in our modern US birthing world, for the majority of people, we have to really work through and filter through so much information to really come back to that inner knowing. Because I'm one for knowledge. I love learning, and I'm not one to just not read all the things and just say, no, I'm just going to do it this way. Like, I love to have all sides and read all the things. And I'm like a researcher, but it's so good to have that knowledge and that book information and that even from our training as, healthcare providers, like I have a lot of information in my head, but you have to kind of push that aside and always come back to that inner knowing and that guidance that you have within as you move into this journey. Because we want you, for every mom who we take care of and every mom out there, we want you to feel respected and fulfilled through your whole pregnancy and birth experience. It doesn't have to be painful and hard. It can be transformative for sure, but it doesn't have to leave you feeling traumatized, which is unfortunately very common. And so I have 4 bullet points that I wrote down in terms of the main ways that we as mothers can, through the birth process specifically, really trust that intuition and inner knowing. And the first one is super duper important. It's who's on your team. So, we kind of have this in the mainstream world, this idea of like, oh, you get the positive pregnancy test, and then you have to find your doctor and what hospital you're going to birth at. And, you take the hospital birthing classes, and you may get some good information. You may have an incredible team through that process, and that's great. But a lot of times it is kind of cookie cutter. The visits aren't very personalized. It becomes very much like this medical, technical, allopathic model of care. And you never really feel directed towards your spiritual inner knowing of birth. It's never really talked about in that model. So then there's the midwifery model of care, which is definitely more focused on that. It depends on the midwife that you have. There's definitely different extremes of that in the midwifery model as well. But for the most part, midwives are going to remind you that you're the mother, you're the one birthing, and they're there to support you. So whether it's your partner, your doctor or your midwife, whether you choose to have a doula is a support person in birth, which I think is extremely valuable if you find somebody who's the right fit for you and your family. And anybody else who you want to have in the birth with you. Choosing your team should very much be an intuitive process. It should be interviewing, asking questions, like definitely logistics on being on the same page, but also how do you feel around that person? Are you willing to be in the most vulnerable place of your life with that person? Do you feel unconditional acceptance and that they're going to respect your choices? So really there's so many questions you can ask regarding this, but when it comes to following your intuition and trusting your inner wisdom, who you're going to have at your birth is, I think, the number one thing to really start with. And then the other things that I'm going to talk about with trusting your intuition are more when you're in the birth process itself. And one of those is trusting your body, that your body knows what positions it needs to be in to help the baby along. And if you have a good supportive team, they will also be there to guide you. But really, the less interference you can have during your birth, the more you can be tapped in deep in the birthing world and really connecting with your body and your baby and that inner wisdom, so that as the baby is progressing and coming into the world, you'll know, like it's not like a mental knowing. It's like this deep inner knowing, like you just know, like I need to move in this way, or I need to get up and get into this position so that baby can move down. And it's not like something you study or you can study it and have that knowledge in the back of your mind, but it's this inner knowing, like your body will just know naturally. It's like when you watch any other mammal give birth, they just know what to do out in the wild to give birth to their child. The problem arises when we're disconnected from this inner knowing and we look to others to direct us. And this is something I ended up doing in the middle of my first birth, where, I was getting tired. I was feeling like I'd been in labor for a long time, and I felt like I just needed some reassurance. And I ended up starting to get more directed through my birth experience, and that brought me further from my body. And so that was my personal experience. So that's where, my team at my first birth was not what I would have chosen the second time around, and it's not what I've chose the second time around. But really knowing that, like, your support people, your team, if you do need help, they know how to direct you without interfering and disrupting you, and being able to really tune in and trust your body, and that you'll know when you need to do certain things. Like, you'll know when you need to get in the water if you want to get in the water. You'll know when you need support. You'll know when you need to move. So really trusting your body through that. And then also trusting the timing. There's these averages that we get boxed into. And especially if you're in a hospital birth, you're on their schedule, you're on their timeline, and they're going to kind of rush things along as needed. This can also happen at home with certain midwives. So you really want to be able to know that there is no normal time, especially as a first-time mom. Your birth could be long. It could be on and off. It could be this day-to-day process. Like, it could take time, and you don't want to have pressure on you that it's taking too long. You want to lean into your body and remind yourself that if your labor is progressing slowly and it is taking longer, that it's okay, and you can trust that and just tap into your body and say, okay, what do I need right now, and what does baby need right now, and trusting that it just may take a little bit longer, and that's okay, and not letting anybody make you feel that you're taking too long or that you're not within a certain time frame is really, really important. And then also, once baby is born, it's so natural for baby to come right to you, and really making that clear to your birth team. As long as, of course, baby doesn't need any medical support, they should come directly to mom and have that skin to skin latch, just connection with mom. For centuries, millennia, up until recent centuries, it was unheard of for a mother and baby to be separated. And that's intuitive. And so if you feel that you may have a situation where baby may be separated from you, like, trust that intuition, that that you want to make it clear in your birth plan that you want baby to be right with you. So those are really the main 4 areas of the birthing experience that I think women can lose their power and not tune into that inner wisdom and lose that sense of control. And so it's, again, not having the right team, not being able to go into the positions that their body wants to go into, being on a time schedule, and then not having that connection right away with baby. But if you can trust your inner intuition and your wisdom to know that your body knows what to do in these situations, then again, you can feel more fulfilled and filled with a sense of respect after your birth experience, which means the world, especially as a new mom in your transition into motherhood. But again, we may be coming up against, depending on your birth experience, technical procedures, aggressive obstetrics, demanding providers. And so not only do we need to trust our inner wisdom, but we also need to advocate for ourselves, or find the right people to advocate for us when we are in labor. Because we need to speak up for ourselves, because we don't want to go into motherhood with any trauma personally for ourselves or for our babies. And that is what can happen, unfortunately, is there can be trauma. So we want to minimize that. We want to trust. The more we can trust and surrender, the more we can be at peace with our birth and have a healthy start for our baby's life and for our motherhood journey, whether it's your first, second, and beyond. And we have a saying in the chiropractic world that the power that made the body heals the body, and trusting that natural healing process in the body. But in this realm, another thing I thought of is, like, the power that made the baby births the baby. Like, think about how incredible that if you're pregnant right now and watching, or if you've recently had a baby, your body took 2 cells, came together, and formed trillions of cells into an intricately designed, perfect human baby. And your body knows how to birth that baby. You were designed as a woman by God to birth this baby or babies, and you can do it. And that wisdom is within you, and I believe in you, and I believe in myself. I am really excited. This baby could be coming out any day now, a little over 38 weeks. But I also trust again, another trusting thing is the due date. That's one I forgot to mention. So my daughter came at almost 42 weeks, and that's late, but it was her timing. She was a little over 6 pounds. She needed that time. And this baby, I feel like they could come sooner, but if it's going to be another 4 weeks for me, I trust that process. And I want to remind you to trust the process too. I see a lot of mamas have some anxiety and fear about their due date and going over. And yes, a lot of providers won't let you go past a certain date without induction. And again, reanalyze that. Is that the right person on your team? I'm not telling you that it's bad to get induced. I'm not sure if that's what your intuition would tell you to do. So if your intuition is telling you not to, then maybe it's time to reevaluate that. So again, the power that made the baby births the baby, and your body knows what to do. This is all beautiful. It can all be so divine. And I hope that this is empowering for you. This is my last webinar that I'm doing for a little while. I'm technically on maternity leave already. And I'm going to take this next quarter off. I'll be back in the new year. But I'm excited for us to announce baby's arrival to our Pure Light community very soon. And I love hearing birth stories. I love taking care of moms through their pregnancies, births, and postpartum, and just seeing the variety and diversity and beauty in every single experience. And so always love to hear birth stories and for you to share. So we'll be sharing ours in just a couple weeks. And if you're expecting soon, congratulations, sending you all of our love and support. And always here if you have any questions or if we can be a resource in any way at Pure Light for you, whether it's finding providers, doulas, connecting with other moms, and just finding the empowered resources you need to have the healthiest pregnancy and birth outcomes for you and your baby. All right, everybody. Well, I'll let y'all get to bed soon. I'm going to do the same and reach out anytime. All right, best.